If you're learning tarot and you're struggling memorizing those meanings, or you want more confidence in the utilization of those meanings for reading for yourself, others, or general spiritual speculation, then stay tuned because I'm going to give you the 5 essential tips in confidently integrating the meanings of the tarot. I'm Joe Monteleone, bona fide mystical misfit and head of Tarot Mysticism Academy. I'm building an army of tarot readers to save the world, find the Holy Grail, and mass produce the Philosopher's Stone. It's much more simple than it sounds, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's talk about it. First tip is to memorize only 1 or 2 symbols on each card. This is because every symbol on one card generally points to the same meaning, and that's because the tarot is holographic. Let me explain. The tarot is a technology of Hermetic philosophy, and one of the principles of Hermetic philosophy is that the larger scale design of something, whether it's the universe or yourself or a piece of art, the larger scale design exists in every pixel of that design on the smaller scale. So in the tarot, for example, the large, full design of the tarot exists in some way on each individual card. And on each card, the general meaning of that card exists in every single symbol on that card. This is what is meant by as above, so below, which I have another video on. Let's use the Empress, for example. We can choose to just focus on the pomegranate on her dress to incorporate all of the meaning of the Empress. The pomegranate is a symbol of fertility, and you'll notice that every other symbol in some way on this card points to fertility, whether it's bodily physical fertility or more cosmic spiritual fertility, or the fertility of the imagination. Whether it's the wheat down below, the glyph of Venus, the chair, the 12 stars of the 12 signs of the zodiac symbolizing this fertile cosmos to create multiplicity, the trees and nature of the background becoming fertilized by the life-giving waters of the High Priestess. Whatever we look at, we see growth. So choose one symbol to encapsulate the whole idea and remember that. Even in the minor arcana, let's take the 2 of Cups for example. We have 2 cups coming together as if in a toast, suggesting some element of agreement, a union, contract, or concord between 2 parties. We have the alchemical red lion, meaning something's getting spicy hot. We have the caduceus, symbolizing communication, but also the coming together of opposites to create something greater. All of these are talking about 2 parties, 2 entities coming together and partaking in something greater than themselves, love. Tip number 2 is for anyone that is having trouble with court cards or the minor arcana. Simply, it's to notice the relationship between the suit symbol and the surrounding places, people, or things. Now for this, you're gonna have to know the 4 suit symbols, so I'll really quickly tell you what they mean. Wands is creativity, cups is emotion or relationship, swords is ego or society, and pentacles is the physical world, money, or work. Now that you know that, all you have to do in the minor arcana and the court cards is notice the relationship between those 4 suit symbols, whatever suit symbol is showing up for you, and the surrounding people, places, or things. That relationship will tell you the type of relationship the client might be having with the subject matter of the suit symbol. So for example, to use our 2 of Cups again, we know that the 2 of Cups has to do with emotions and relationships. But what is the relationship between the cups and the people in the card? Well, the 2 people are holding their cups at equal length, almost as if they're toasting each other and they're looking at each other. So we might say that they are holding their emotions in hand, presenting them to each other and engaging in this vulnerable contract, or potentially this flirtation. If we take the 3 of Wands, we'll notice that somebody is leaning on the wands while looking outwards. So the wands we know represent creativity. So that tells us that he might be leaning on something he has created, maybe an enterprise or a plan or a goal or his career, and in leaning on that, he sets his sights outwards. So maybe it is through his career or through his creativity that he relies on in order to expand his world. This technique is very useful. I've made a whole video on it and I will link that in the description of this video. Tip number 3, start a tarot journal. So my master tarot archive, which is my personal virtual archive of everything I know about tarot, is hundreds and hundreds of pages long. And at this point, it's honestly probably a virtual Horcrux. I probably shouldn't have told you that. Anyway, I've logged into that thing countless hours of study, research, associations, correspondences, esoteric philosophy, divinatory meanings, personal experiences. There's just so much. Now, what's important for your tarot journal is that for each card you have 2 sections. In your first section, you're gonna log in all the historical information of the cards, symbols, esoteric correspondences, personal revelations, all of the general meaning and things that you wanna plug in for that card, which will eventually act as a trigger to bring all of those things into your awareness. The second section that you should have for each card in your journal is the divinatory meanings. That way, it's a quick and easy peek reference for study, for memorization. And if you want to get really fancy, you can draw correspondences between all the historical, philosophical, and symbolic information that you're logging in with all the divinatory information. Now, that is something I actually start teaching in my Advanced Tarot course, when you start bending the reality between what we use for divination and what we use as our esoteric understanding of the world, and that's ultimately mysticism. Tip number 4, integrate a system of information that is already familiar to you. So, New Age spirituality is very much on the rise, and a lot of these, at one time, esoteric systems are becoming much more mainstream and much more comfortable in the collective consciousness. I live in the United States, where astrology is pretty much the national religion at this point. So if you're familiar with another system in spirituality, especially one that uses symbols, typology, or categorization of information, there's probably a connection to it, to tarot, in one way or another. And if not, you can probably make your own. Incorporating that system into your studies will add a layer of familiarity, which will act as the glue to keep all the information together in a way that's more fun for you and easier. Examples of fields that are connected to tarot include astrology, numerology, Hermetic Kabbalah, magic, the 4 elements, Jungian archetypes, Myers-Briggs, and the list goes on. Many of these I actually teach in my curriculum at Tarot Mysticism Academy. So if you're interested, I'll leave the link below and you can check out the curriculum there. Oh, and before I continue, I will leave links below to download free study guides, free classes, and additional resources from Tarot Mysticism Academy. New correspondences are always being drawn to tarot, as tarot is a multicultural, multivalent technology for self-revelation. My current hyperfixation is Vedanta, so I'm starting to systematize the beautiful and highly sophisticated cosmology of the Vedanta with tarot, and it's been so very fun. So don't be afraid to draw your own associations. Tarot is definitely not dogmatic and is free to express all things. And my last and most important point is to respect the tradition, but always trust your intuition. So let's get into this balance. If tarot teaches us anything, it is that reality is a dynamic dance of opposites that keeps it going. So let's define the intuition and the intellect, and then I'm going to show you how they're both really kind of the same thing. So first, the intuition. Manly P. Hall, 33rd degree Freemason and generally awesome esotericist, describes intuition as this inner coordinator that takes these 5 streams of sense data, or 5 senses, and makes sense of them in a way that's faster and almost like more complicated and sophisticated than logic or sensation itself. Intuition kind of can come in a flash, or another sense altogether, or a combination of senses, or just a general feeling. But it's usually something holistic, and it usually happens all at once, as opposed to the intellect, which is generally analytical, breaks things down, sees things linearly, and works in steps. The best way to understand this is to use the example of a maze. Let's say you're in this giant maze and you're trying to escape. The intellect would have you go into your memory box and think about all of the past choices you've made, the rights, the lefts, the forwards, the turnarounds, and try to deduce in some way where the exit might be. The intuition, on the other hand, would fly above the maze, metaphorically, see the whole maze, and in a moment, see the path outwards from where you are to the exit. Now, I use the word fly above very intentionally for this metaphor because the intuition is kind of like another dimension altogether. When you're reading tarot, the intellect is what brings up the information you know about the card, the correspondences, the divinatory meanings you've memorized, and all the amazing techniques that you've incorporated from this video, right? But the intuition just sees the message at once. But the thing is, the intuition and the intellect are not separate. They're actually the same thing. So if the soul is like a funnel, then pure consciousness would be at the top, which is shared by everyone. This is the pure awareness that we are literally all sharing right now. It's the awareness that you have watching this video, etc. It's all happening now. That's, by the way, one of the biggest secrets of mysticism, and kind of the whole point is connecting to that pure awareness. Anyway, that funnel goes downwards and funnels that awareness into the Kia and then eventually into the Neshama, which is the intuition. The intuition is where we can kind of peek into this large cloud of consciousness. We can kind of like connect to the iCloud or connect to the Wi-Fi and pull in these images and ideas and information when we're giving tarot readings and doing other practices. Now that intuition funnels down even further into the intellect, the Ruach. That's where we make deductions and kind of make meaning based on the information that appears intuitively in the Neshama. This is the part of the soul that allows us to communicate to our clients what we're seeing. And that's why sometimes when you go to a tarot reader or whenever you're reading, you might kind of like make a weird face or pause for a little bit or kind of like look a little weird. It's because the Neshama, the intuition, is bringing information into the Ruach and the Ruach is decoding it, or it's like buffering and bringing that information into a legible idea for you to actually express. The Ruach and the intellect is the realm of language and concept and idea, and concepts are these kind of sharp pieces of information and reality which is not separated. My purpose for telling you all this is that I want you to understand that the development of intuition and the intellectual study of tarot help each other out. The more you study the symbols and history and the philosophy of tarot, the more your intuition has to work with in terms of associations and ideas for it to kind of flow into. And the more you open up intuitively, the more easy it will be to study these concepts, because your intuition will naturally see all the connections between these correspondences, these symbols, and the very deep Hermetic philosophy underlying the tarot. So those are my 5 top tips for reinforcing the meanings of the tarot in your mind, which is also your intuition, which is also pure consciousness. If you would like any additional information on any of these topics, let me know. You can find more information and free classes at tarotmysticismacademy.com. Much love, and I hope to see you in the next wormhole.